any situation where there's a degree of uncertainty, and that's often the case in sport, people try to control or at least get the sense of control by engaging in rituals.
And you write that 3 out of 4 Americans believe in the possibility of ghosts, psychics, telepathy, or some measure of the supernatural, and that goes up to 9 out of 10 if you include religious belief in that broad category of supernatural. Why do so many of us hold these beliefs?
I think they're inevitable. I think they're a product of a brain that creates the mind that seeks to find structure and purpose and meaning in the environment. And in doing so, often comes up with explanations which, if they were true, would be supernatural. So I think it's an inevitable consequence of a brain which is designed to interpret the world.
You mean religion, superstition, belief in psychics, all these things serve an evolutionary function?
Yeah, now religions, of course, they're kind of complex. They come from culture, so they're a narrative. They address the existential issues. You know, why are we here? Where do we come from? And where are we going? And there's protagonists. There's individuals which form part of the religion, and this is storytelling. But every religion has a component of supernatural aspects, whether it's spirits or life after death or so forth. On the other hand, supernatural beliefs and superstitions don't necessarily have to be religious, and that's why I say atheists can also have such notions. So I don't think anyone is entirely rational, because I reckon if I had them for a day or two, I could kind of track them around and find some strange behavior.
Wait a minute, the idea of a superstitious atheist is
Yeah.
kind of an oxymoron on its face, isn't it?
It does seem so, yeah. Well, it depends if you define belief in the supernatural as relating to God. On the other hand, if you think that you can control outcomes, or that we have certain abilities, such as precognition or telepathy, that doesn't require a God, but would be equally supernatural.
And you just I quoted some of the statistics that you give in the book about Americans and their rates of belief in ghosts and things. What about other countries? Is it that the more technologically advanced a culture is, the less likely its people are to hold supernatural beliefs?
No, I don't think so. If you consider Japan, for example, they're a technologically advanced country, and they have lots of beliefs and a variety of gods. Or people usually use the Scandinavian countries as a good example, because atheism is more prominent there. Yet I don't think there's any evidence that they're less inclined towards supernatural beliefs. So religion, if that's the mode of thinking in the culture, will dominate. But in cultures where there isn't a strong religious component, then people find other outlets for their belief systems.
Bruce Hood, my guest on WNYC, author of SuperSense, Why We Believe in the Unbelievable. What superstitious beliefs do you hold, folks, that you know are irrational, but you believe them anyway? Or doesn't it work that way? If you think they're irrational, maybe you dismiss them. Maybe you have to think they're rational to hold supernatural beliefs. 212-433-WNYC, 212-433-9692, or anything you want to say related to this, or to ask Bruce Hood, 212-433-9692, or post to WNYC.org. And in fact, Bruce, you're right that most of us can hold supernatural beliefs even when we're not fully aware that we do. Even Richard Dawkins, even Christopher Hitchens.
Oh, now that's a good one. So I will give you an example, and let's consider this. If I asked you, would you wear a cardigan, an old cardigan that belonged to someone else, and it was fully clean? Most people say yeah, and if I offered you an incentive, say $50, would you wear the cardigan? I think most people would say yeah, absolutely. But if I told you that that cardigan belonged to Jeffrey Dahmer, then I would imagine that most people would be reluctant to touch the cardigan. Now you might say, well, why do we do this? The thing about this example is that most people respond intuitively, almost immediately, and then come up with an explanation later on. And those explanations vary from kind of the notion that you think it might be contaminated with some biological entity. But I think that really, for most people, it's as if it's contaminated with a psychological property, almost like evil, a malevolence that has somehow become manifest in the physical world.
And you write that the beliefs behind superstitious practices work to reduce the stress caused by uncertainty. So in some sense, it's a coping mechanism.
Yes, so you find in any job or profession where there's a high degree of uncertainty at risk, maybe firefighters or lifeguards, or anything where there's a real possibility that the consequences of something going wrong are pretty catastrophic, people will engage in superstitious ritual.
Angela in Queens knocks on wood, right, Angela?
Yes, I do. I'm actually doing it a lot more than I used to, because I have a 3-month-old baby, and if there's one thing I've learned from her, it's that, you know, the books can tell you everything in the world, but life is very unpredictable. And the best scientists in the world are not, they can't guarantee anything in life. So
you knock on wood,
fails, excuse me?
it's just in case, Angela.
Kind of. So, you know, sort of, you know, when you've done everything you possibly could, there's still fate and there's still luck that comes into play, and that's, you know, the last resort.
Thank you very much. Here's a superstitious atheist, Peter in Brooklyn. You're on WNYC. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Okay.
I'm a pretty strong atheist. I could never bring myself to believe in God. I'm an atheist Jew, so it gets even more complicated. But that being said, my superstitions, I always step onto a plane with my left foot, and as I cross the threshold, I touch something that's red, whether it's on my body or on the side of the plane.
And why do you do these things?
Someone told me that once, and, you know, as irrational as I know it to be, I figure it can't hurt. Why not? You know, the black cat walking in front of me thing, I bug out when I see that. I refuse to walk under a ladder, which obviously is a smart thing to do anyway.
Then, Peter, maybe you're really an agnostic. Maybe you're really not so sure if there's a supernatural realm.
You know, I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident in my convictions with that. I've read Christopher Hitchens' God Is Not Great, and all those books that sort of confirm what I believe.
I think you've got a logic problem to present to your family at Seder on Wednesday night. But Bruce, go ahead.
Well, Peter, you're in good company. Charles Mooney, the co-founder of Microsoft, one of the richest men in the world, he's been taking flights up into space. I don't know if you've been aware about this. But on his first flight, one of the superstition that the Russian astronauts have to engage in, and this is a little bit gross, on the bus on the way to the flight deck, they have to relieve themselves on the back wheels of the bus. So I think that's an interesting issue. You know, here is one of the most rational, brilliant businessmen and some of the greatest technology in current day world, and yet we still feel this need to kind of discontrol things a bit. So you're in good company.